All right.
He probably
What
just
the
sat
hell?
out there and
He just came from a jewelry
waited for
store. He just came from a jewelry store.
Yeah, I told them to. I convinced them to do the Polito robbery afterwards. So.
Wow.
Oh, it's like a
Well,
store.
they're all dressed up as to like okay. So oh yes, Barrick. Remember the case?
Yeah.
The thing, the rollback. Well, they dressed up as and then, but I gun ID'd Ray, and I asked them if they were going to do another job later, and they said they're doing Polito. So yeah, they have a whole thing. They're trying to show how ridiculous it is. Are you? What do you guys see right now?
You holding an AR?
You with an M4 in your hand?
Okay, it doesn't look like I'm doing some weird shit.
No, you're holding an AR though.
Don't match your jacket.
The only weird thing is you're not matching, brother.
Wait, what do you mean?
You're wearing blue pants with a black jacket.
Yeah.
I think our pants are more like a lighter shade of black.
Yeah.
Like one's a blue black rather, and your jacket's like a brown black.
Yeah, that's kind of we don't really have black pants, unfortunately.
The men's section sucks.
All right.
Like the women's section. I can be a taco.
All the best men's clothing do not have matched tops or bottoms. So if you find pants that you love, you're not going to find a matching top. If you find a top that you love, good luck finding some pants.
Okay, it's time to tear down the system now. Get the better pants.
And the Celtics advance.
Oh, how are they doing?
Point win.
By the way, Mr. Knight is here.
Magic by 31 points. At home.
Fuck the Celtics.
Glad I didn't watch it.
Are the Knicks even in it, Ramilla?
The Knicks lost tonight. I'm very upset, but we're up 3-2.
Coming down here.
Honestly, I forget who the Knicks are even playing.
Pistons.
Yeah.
All right, I'm glad the Knicks lost.
Go to hell, Murphy.
I want the Pistons.
To win? Really?
Please, guys, please. We're not going to do this. I'm very passionate about this subject, and I don't want to get into it. Please.
All right, let's not hijack.
Hello, Brian Knight.
How you doing, ma'am? It's a nice capsule you got here.
Right? Thank you. It's quite nice.
Yeah.
I like it. Why don't you introduce yourself to us and explain to us why you want to be the sheriff?
Sure. Well, it is Tuesday evening, 11:16 p.m., and most of what's going on in the city is largely pings, people breaking into banks, and I saw the poster hanging up. Sign up to become the sheriff today, and I've said, you know what? Let me add a little bit of spice to my life today, and here I am.
So, as flavor of the week, what makes you think you won't be bored of it tomorrow?
Because I am one of, if not the most persistent law enforcement officer in the last 15 years.
When you say persistent, what does that mean to you? What is persistence?
I think my longest investigation. I'm sorry?
Whoever that is hiding over there can come sit down.
Omar.
I really didn't know if I was to intrude or walk or stay back.
Well, that's
here,
all right.
Yeah.
Okay, apologies.
Usually we have an LSPD representative on our panel. This was a little bit, quickly put together.
Oh, he's my not cadet. He's been a cause of investigation.
Yes, sir.
Well, as far as I'm concerned. All right.
Lovely.
Yeah, I mean, you could say, I am going to be treating this as an interview as much as I see y'all treating this as an interview. So I'm kind of as curious to know what kind of questions you're going to ask me because, I'm sure there's other front runners, but at the very same time, I'm curious what you're asking other candidates.
Sure.
Right?
Sure, and I will ask the same questions. I don't know about the others, but, generally we build off of each other and stuff like that.
All right.
Usually we'd have additional people here. I try to have like a DOJ representative, someone from LSPD, someone from BCSO. usually I try to have someone from the criminal side of things, you know,
Mm.
because that's the person who's going to have to be dealing with BCSO on the other side of things. So I guess, you know, maybe Ursula, you can pretend to be that, or Romello, why don't you do that? You can be our criminal.
What?
Damn.
Damn.
I don't know.
Oh,
I just felt like I could ask Rhodes, but I don't know. He just looks more like a cop right now.
What? I'm wearing my uniform.
Yeah, but Rhodes does look more like a cop. He looks like, you know,
Hi,
kind of
y'all. I'll be the criminal.
Yeah, thank you very much. Okay. He was on his phone in the middle of the interview. So anyway, yeah. So we will, you know, ask questions, and feel free, any of you on the panel, you can ask questions at any time. But I will start us out with one that I will ask. I've asked every candidate so far. What issues do you see with BCSO's current structure and operations? Now, would you fix them?
I think the problem with BCSO is a very similar problem that is with the LSPD. It kind of reminds me of back in the day when the BCSO was run by then Sheriff Kyle Pratt and since deceased Chief of Police Sam Bass. It's two entities that constantly at the very top battle measure dicks. But at the end of the day, our 99.9% of our job is unified, right? Whether it's calls on the field, whether it's long-term investigations, each and every officer needs to work together. Unfortunately, even putting all of that aside, our standards have very much fallen. Simple things like RS and PC, I think if you query about half the force, they don't even know what that is. They may claim it is. They give answers like, I think it's like that, or they'll give examples that are inadequate. And as a consequence of that, our win rate in court is at an all-time low. So when you say what's wrong with BCSO, it's the same problems that's wrong with LSPD. I think people have forgotten what it means to be law enforcement. And what it means to arrest somebody, and what it means to press charges adequately enough that you can win those in court. So,
So, if your issue is with the functioning of both departments, why go for BCSO? Why not try to become chief of police?
I think the mayor of Los Santos County is kind of a dumbass. Probably a criminal, quite frankly. He reminds me a little bit of a Lang Buddha when he was mayor way back when. Except Lang back then actually had, he had a lot of plans for the police department, whether it be CPD or whether it be the Aegis Corporation that was supplying us with missiles, fighter jets, and other things like that. And quite frankly, I have to ask myself, what has the mayor done for us? Be it the LSPD or San Andreas?
And I suppose if you became sheriff of the BCSO, there's quite a strong possibility you'd end up saying the same things about me.
So I think it goes a little bit further than that. I think Blaine County being the how do I put this? I think there's another piece of the puzzle here, right? I don't think I would get along with some of the ideologies that the current mayor of Los Santos County has. And therefore, I would not be offered the opportunity to take that position. Now, with that said, I also think Chief Turner is driving things in the direction that are necessary. And with this position being open, I mean, that would allow me to make immediate change, right? For me, department doesn't really mean anything. Sure, I can put on a cowboy hat and say yeehaw and put on a voice, but at the end of the day, it's an area of San Andreas that needs to be patrolled, and most, like I said earlier, at the end of the day, we're going to be working with LSPD one way or another. So, start change in one place, it'll get applied to the other.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
I've
got a question.
Sure.
In your first week, what actionable things would you do if you were the sheriff?
I think the first thing that would need to be done is reassess the SOPs. They rarely get updated. And every time I take a look at the quote unquote updates that are currently posted on the MDT, they're sort of like, it reminds me of, and Rhodes, you probably remember this, it's the equivalent of standing up at the front of a meeting and say, do your job. But there is no methodology by which the entire police force can follow. So you end up with a situation where 90% of the force is going to hear it. They may not read it, or they may hear something that goes in one ear and out the other. So that would be my first step. Look through the SOPs, see where the faults are, and understand where our major gaps are. Even if it's as simple as identifying, like, do we know how to properly detain and articulate on a traffic stop, right? And from there, get some basic training modules going. Fix the SOPs based on the results from that, and make sure that the officers that are getting back on the field understand the bare minimums. So what I'm saying here is start with the foundations and work on it. And the command structure should be entirely focused on that being the goal. Because going and chasing pings all day, I mean, we can do that 6 months from now. But if our ability to perform is not getting improved, well, what's the point? So, does that answer your question?
Yeah. You outlined a few things that I very much so agree with you on.
Yeah.
So you're a papers guy. What about in terms of talking to people within the department? Would you make changes to the command structure, and how would you encourage communication between command and the rest of the BCSO?
Communication has always been one of the biggest faults of the UPD. Communication is difficult. Why? Because usually it requires something as simple as writing. Email communication is important, but equally it requires a cadence in which you're bringing in your command, figuring out what action items need to be done, and executing on those and making sure that there are results coming out of it. What I described that right there may seem simple and obvious, but actually doing it is the challenge. And when you say, how would you pick the command structure, it would be entirely based on performance. I think starting with what is currently there is perfectly reasonable, but there needs to be an expectation that those in command are actually doing that role. If they're not, well, I mean, it's time to step down. Otherwise you end up with a bloated command structure, and you end up with like 7, I mean, God knows how much. We got like fucking 15 sergeants right now. The problem is when you have that many, you get in a situation where each one of them is looking left and right and being like, oh yeah, that other guy's going to do it. Reality is you need a slim top, right? Your top needs to just be doing work 80% of the time. And if they can't fulfill it, it's time to step down. Right. I do not view rank as an achievement unlock, like as if it's Call of Duty, but rather it comes with very specific responsibilities. All right.
Interesting.
Yeah.
How would you pick your undersheriff?
I wouldn't. It goes back to the flat structure system. If I were to pick a undersheriff, especially without seeing how they perform, all it would be is one other individual that everyone's going to look at and get jealous of. Instead, the command structure should be one member of, I mean, it doesn't even need to be a member of high command, whether it's like a captain or whatever. Needs to be one person responsible for each shift. see how they perform. Over time, if one of those shifts end up having more than one individual that can fulfill that role, then we can get to that point. But an extra, quite frankly, I never understood the role of a chief and an ass chief or a sheriff and an undersheriff. All that does is create a mom and dad system, right? Can't get something from one, you go to the other one. Adds to more communication problems. So
Makes sense.
Okay, but in this in sort of the example you just gave.
By the way, I'm being serious, but I do not
you
want
just
the
being
job.
A single person. Obviously, you know, there could be multiple captains, lieutenants, whatever the situation is.
Yeah.
But in my experience, having been,
I want to be
an
very
undersheriff,
clear. This
a
is
lot of what I
serious
had to do
trolling.
was pretty much taking place of the sheriff when he wasn't around. He was just a single person, right? Specifically, I would delve heavily into shift 3 and into early 1. That being said, do you not agree at all with the concept of an undersheriff or ass chief?
I do, but I think it's a role that can be acquired over time. I think once a new chief or a new sheriff is put into place, filling that role too quickly, sort of, you're taking too big of a gamble way too early. Now, 4 weeks into becoming sheriff, as things sort of play out, I think finding someone that really matches your pacing and fills the gap that you might be missing is reasonable. But doing it off the bat, too high of a risk. Especially since, sometimes there's a lot of talk about like macro and micro management, though I don't think most people really understand that concept properly. Is the reality is you put a new head of a department in, or you're starting a new company, you're going to need to heavily micro, right? There's so many moving parts. But as you slowly shift into more macro management, that's when you can identify that second in command and that's properly gelling with you, right? And I think that's where the role that you're describing comes into play, right? They really become your your right or left hand man or woman. So
I have a very specific question for you.
Yep, absolutely.
Do you think that civilian complaints resulting in punishments or disciplinary action, should the information or any information regarding those disciplinary actions go back to the civilian who made the complaint?
Absolutely. I only had we had an election a very long time ago for the chief of police, in which I won by a pretty landslide election. Garnered me chief. Unfortunately, the department only lasted for about, I want to say 3 to 4 months before there was a number of reasons why there was a shuffle of the entire UPD. So all 4 departments were shut down. But during that those 3 to 4 months, we applied the way that we used to punish was this. I used to have to handle Carmine. I used to handle a lot of problem children, quite frankly. But the way that they were handled, whether it was a problem child or whether it was a pretty diligent officer, we used to resolve those things within the day. That was my policy. If we cannot resolve the problem in a day, that's a management issue. In fact, those problems needed to be resolved within a couple hours. What did that mean? Let's say Carmine Costello, you get a phone call from a sergeant, lieutenant, whatever, and they're like, okay, Carmine just pulled his dick out and, took a piss all over, Senior Bun's food court. Well, immediately that individual, Carmine in that case, needs to be brought into the office. We need to understand exactly what he did from his perspective, and I'd had a very stern zero tolerance policy on lying. Now, if Carmine came in, and he learned this very quick, if you come in and tell me that you did it because it was funny, I will understand that significantly more than if you lie to me. because if he lies to me, I can't properly assess the situation, and I cannot trust him to be in my department. With that in mind, I would then also listen to the civilian complaint from their perspective, because at the end of the day, it's he said, she said, both sides are going to embellish. But if the officer was truthful, they would get less of a punishment. So let's say there was a baseline of like 5 strike points. You lie to me, you double down, you don't seek forgiveness and show me that you're willing to, stop your behavior. It's going to be the full 5. Might even be a suspension. However, if you show remorse and understanding, less of a punishment. So it encouraged truthfulness. The results of that would be immediately given to the civilian, ensure they're happy, and they usually would be. And then, we're back to business. Problem gets resolved, hour, 2 hours. It's a bigger situation, resolve it in 24. Easy, done, move on. And if you don't do that, it just turns into a drama shit show. Civilians mad, Carmine's getting pointed at, people make fun of him on the radio. Yeah. So, anyways, yep.
I got a question. I want to go back to training. One thing I've seen from the Crim Romello talking right now is the overabundance or the overreaction, for the lack of a better term, of units on calls. Do you see that as a problem? Or have you seen that?
We treat, for whatever reason today, we're both not aggressive enough or too aggressive. And this is going to sound like what is it? It's going to sound contradictory, but I'll explain. If someone robs a 24/7, we should not be on that call for more than 30 minutes. Back in the day, there was a timer. That timer keeps going up. The chase gets more reckless. There are more vehicles involved. We are going to be escalating, even if it means 150 miles an hour. The reason is the extremities of that situation are not only depleting resources across San Andreas. People aren't able to respond to it. But it's creating, 2-hour chase is just creating more opportunity for people who get injured. But at the very same time, a 24/7, if you don't catch them, right, within like 20 minutes, 30 minutes, chase is getting dangerous, break off that call. If you got the hostage, who gives a shit? It's like a couple milk and brownie. The problem is, from what I've seen, is we have endless attaches where that 24/7 becomes an equivalence of a Polito bank. Simultaneous to this, we should not be encouraging these swaps, but immediately getting aggressive. We're sort of creating a situation where endless chases result in more cops, but simultaneously allowing people to get into these multiple swap vehicles inherently creates a behavior where people will treat the 24/7 like a Polito. So yes, hard cop numbers. If people get real sweaty and they're on 24/7 with 5 swap cars, like, break off that shit. It doesn't make any sense. So,
okay,
yeah.
I do have another question. And I want to start by saying I'm not calling you out at all. Full disclosure, damn well I have 0 involvement in shift 2 or late shift 1 into 2, so I rarely see you.
Yeah.
But when I was looking at the roster earlier today, I did notice you're listed as part-time. Is that accurate, or are you full-time?
I am part-time due to not needing obligations, but I think if you take a look at my hours, I do.
You can accommodate, right?
I'm kind of a crackhead. Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify that because,
oh God, do they think I'm
part-time going for a
bro? I bet they're all think I'm actually serious about this. I'm treating it serious, but
other than basic police-related fundamentals, what I think is the most crucial aspects of running a department or keeping people together.
Can you ask that question just one more time for me?
Other than the police related or law enforcement fundamentals and all the I guess like nitty gritty police related things. Like, what do you think are the most important aspects of? I guess you could phrase it as leadership or aspects of being in a position like that.
I think a good leader requires sternness, however, while being compassionate. And what that means is that those that operate under you need to know when things need to get locked in, and you're serious, they got to fall into line. Yes, sir. No, sir. Boom, boom. However, compassionate enough to understand that people make mistakes. And finding where that balance is very difficult. But that's part of that role of that sheriff in chief, is to ensure that your leaders are actually leaders and not just seeking that position so that they can, whip people around, or on the flip side, coddle them to the extent where those under them feel invincible, right? The first one's bad because, it results in officers that quite frankly don't want to be around. But on the flip side, you baby them and they're invincible. Well, they become a nuisance to society at that point, right?
Yes, men.
Yes, precisely.
Do you believe that community policing, or well, rather maybe community outreach, is an important aspect of policing?
Criminal Romero, that's a good question.
That is during when we opened up Davis PD, the first thing that I decided on is that we had a park where the ADMC block is today, and we did a weekly DPD barbecue where the entire force would come over. We still have pictures actually, and I think our attendance rate was like 85%. We would do about 30 minutes of we'd have to invite the doctors, we invite the EMS, who were just by Simone Memorial at the time. That's what it was called before CMC. And we would do all the boring shit, get it out of the way, but then talk about accomplishments that week. Big investigations, big wins in court. And the idea there was to take individual accomplishments or group accomplishments in that department and put them to the forefront. Because too often people are out there doing very grand things, but they're too afraid to bring it up. And it's important that others bring it up for them. It does two things. One is it promotes a feeling of success, right? But the second thing is it encourages those around them to want to do the same. Shortly after this, what we would do after the thing is we would do what we call the DPD stops. And this was very meant to be a community outreach. We'd find a vehicle that was speeding down on the south side. That's the responsibility we had. We had the DPD was the south side department. Speeding vehicle. I'd pull it over, and I'd call for 77s, and you'd see about 20 cop cars pull up alongside EMS ambulances. And the point of it was sort of it was a bit of a joke, right? 20 vehicles, ambos pulling up, surrounding a vehicle. And over that course of 3 months, people started to kind of get the vibe. And so little things like that is what creates a understanding with the community. And the second bit is that it encourages traffic stops, because each traffic stop is an opportunity not just to catch somebody, but for that law enforcement officer to get to know the person behind the wheel, and vice versa. So.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I think the short answer there is patrol, right? You're not doing it just to catch people, just to make sure that they're all right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have another question.
Sure.
So earlier you had mentioned stuff regarding updating SOPs, primarily because oftentimes they are outdated. People who haven't been around, don't end up getting updated as a result, because it wasn't announced anywhere outside of a meeting and a specific shift, where just as you said, it becomes another do your job announcement. That being said, do you think that 90 days is a long enough tenure to make notable change in a police department within high command?
90 days? Oh, absolutely. I think you can make notable change in the first 30 days. But change is subjective. It depends what kind of change exactly you're kind of aiming for, right? Everything needs milestones, right? You will never reach perfection. So notable change should and needs to be made in the first 30. Hell, in the first 2 weeks. And those changes need to be measurable, and in the government structure we got right here is those milestones should be something that the mayor should be able to look at and be like, here's what we got today, here's where we're going to get to in 2 weeks, and you should be able to produce that to your boss, quite frankly. In fact, we had to do that with Mr. Lang Buddha pretty often. It was when he was mayor.
Mr. Knight, I would say a lot of people would tend to disagree with you. Do you think that's a culture problem, or do you think that that's a a personnel resource kind of problem, or maybe a mix of both?
You're in that what you're saying, people think that they can't make change in 90 days?
Yeah, many people would say that, it would be difficult to get things done in a certain amount of time. It's like one of the most common complaints in the city.
That they should be in no important role then.
Mm-hmm. Good answer.
We talked about UPD stuff and we all have to work together.
Yeah.
Do you think there's anything special that makes a Blaine County deputy a Blaine County deputy?
Absolutely.
You think is it important for there to be a difference?
Oh, of course. So, unified police department doesn't necessarily mean that everyone is cut from the same cloth. Just as there is TRT, pursuit unit, detective units, which unfortunately we don't really have. I mean, we kind of do, but not really. Just as there's those specializations, I see LSPD and Blaine County Sheriff's Office as a separate type of specialization, right? It's where if you go up to a senior deputy, they should be able to tell you what's going on in Paleto, who the people are over there, who are the people over in Sandy Shores, right? They're still assisting down in the city, but their specialty, their specialization is tied to the department they're working in. In the setup that we have today, they should understand some of the financial burdens, or the should know about what's going on with Norman Bones, or the pestilence thing, which, by the way, any officer that goes anywhere near that lighthouse, you probably want to be questioning. Things like that. But someone down at the city, they might need to know a little bit more about what's going on in the sewers, society down there, the difference between the Vagos and Manor, right? Are they beefing? Are they not beefing? What is their beef over? Why does it matter? Because the way that we approach them, whether it's an interrogation or when we approach them, like, in a shootout, all those like little details matter. So, we, a deputy should be experts of the county.
Speaking of that, just to pick your brain a little bit, because we're trying to figure it out. Is there like west of Cyprus Vagos? No, they're east. Are they east or? Do you know how many Cypresses are there?
It's north and south Cyprus.
So the east Vagos of Cyprus, east of Cyprus.
Oh,
Vagos.
East side Vagos is in the barrio.
Oh, they said that. I swear they said it's west of Cyprus Vagos.
Oh, I ran into them earlier today. So that's a different clique of the Vagos. Yeah. I understand the confusion. The Vagos that you may have seen 6 months back, that was run by, the name is escaping me right now. But that clique is not the same clique that you're seeing today. So Yeah, it's a different clique of the Vagos.
How do you feel about clicks?
In gangs, well, cliques are just many different sub denominations of a gang. It's kind of like the Ballas and Grove Street families. They were part of the families, but then those cliques split. Or in the Ballas, there's KTB versus, there's different Balla cliques. It's sort of, is that what you're talking about?
In the police department, do you think there's clicks?
I mean, it depends. I mean, clique is a bit of a toxic word, to be honest. Like, yes, there's friend groups, but like it, I mean, that's pretty normal, I think.
Okay.
Like, Omar and I Omar and Frost, we like to patrol around, we just get together well. I mean, are we a clique? Sure, but, I hope people aren't thinking we're just a clique, because that sort of implies we can't communicate with other individuals. I think if anyone's throwing the word clique around and shit like that, they probably just can't communicate very well with another party, and that's a them problem.
So do you think it will be a significant issue or not if a department bypasses chain of command and goes specifically to friends?
I'm a very staunch believer in chain of command. Chain of command can be broken if it's necessary, but should not be something that happens often. And as sheriff, if I saw that happening, someone's getting knocked down a peg. So at the end of the day, we are here to fulfill a job. It's a privilege, right? We weren't birthed with a badge. We were either hired into it with a responsibility over others. And if we can't do those things, and instead we're on duty just to fuck around and play fucking drama games, I would want you nowhere near my department. That's kind of my thing on it. And if people are like, there's always going to be internal drama, right? But that's where you have to drive people into a room and get them to figure it out before they leave. Because that stuff should not be entering into the, do it in a corner somewhere, just not, on the field.
I do have a question regarding chain of command and how you would deal with a certain situation.
Mm-hmm.
Because oftentimes people bring up chain of command, and in the case in which you're referring to, or not the specific case, but an example, if somebody had like a complaint on an officer, I would be very firm on chain of command, for example. But if I was processing somebody, and say there was a PPO or something that had we'll just say a very basic question, I would never be of the mindset to like turn them away and be like, go on radio, go and find a senior or an officer, to speak to them about, something that could be answered very quickly, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Would you make those concessions regarding chain of command, or you just
100%.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think chain of command is such a broad thing that different people think of it different ways. Like for me, I would not want Alana Reviews calling me up every second, which she used to. I would say, Alana, you need to go talk to somebody else. And if that, for small things, right? I'm using her as an example.
Mm-hmm.
And so if it's like small little things and she's uncomfortable, I need to show her to do that. But if that became a problem, I see that as a chain of command issue. However, for everyday things, we need to treat each other like small things. Yeah, of course. But it's more if it becomes problematic. Though I do think officer complaints need to go right to sergeants. Because in my mindset as to what a sergeant, it needs to go to a member of command. I would not want seniors to be handling complaints. They would not be trained to do so. I quite frankly don't think a lot of people can handle complaints properly to begin with. That in and of itself requires training. So
does that also tie into what you had previously explained regarding like you want shit handled immediately?
Correct.
So instead of speaking to one person and then the next and then the next, it's just going to someone who by default is going to have that authority.
Precisely. It would be
Got it.
sergeants should be trained to properly handle complaints, whether they're internal or external. And that requires severe training and or a lot of training and takes time to teach. Give it to a senior. I think it's not only too much responsibility, but has just too high of a chance of going sideways. So. All right.
These have been some really good answers to these questions.
Yeah.
If anyone has any additional questions, you can feel free to ask them. I think I've got a good understanding of where you're at in some of these.
Absolutely.
So I am satisfied. And I appreciate your time.
Absolutely. One thing I would heavily encourage, ma'am, is we strongly lack detectives, and that's both in the LSPD and Blaine County. Now, there may be individuals that see themselves as detectives. However, most cases require an entire team dedicated, properly trained, to be able to work together to solve very long-running things. And quite frankly, some of our biggest dangers that we face today are never going to get solved. Or will we be able to be prepared for it without something like that in place? And it would require both departments to work together. So, yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Something like a certification, you think? Like Rangers or Pursuit?
If I'm going to be frank with you, and this is no shot at anyone in particular, our current certifications don't really, they're more clearances than certs. And what I mean by that is, it would need to be more than that. They need goals, right?
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, cool. All right.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time. Was expecting some hard-hitting questions, to be honest.
Did you think we were going to ask what RS and PC is?
All right. Here's a hard hitting question, Brian. Do you have any questions for the princess?
Yeah. Sure. Why do you call this a castle?
Look at it.
Yeah, but it's the interior. Isn't a castle like the exterior?
Technically, a castle is usually a whole walled-in town with a keep in the middle, but
That is true.
True.
there's only so much that we can do in Blaine County.
Yeah.
And, I already had my opponent saying that I was embezzling because I had this place and this place, all above board. But can you imagine if I built a castle?
That's
Don't forget what we called the castle on Conquistador Street.
Well,
God.
so what I'm hearing there, ma'am,
Remind me of that.
what I'm hearing there, ma'am, and I do agree with it, is a grape seed's got to get built up.
Yeah, if someone offered me to build a castle, I would absolutely say yes.
I know a guy.
Okay.
Yeah.
You can have a turret. That would be nice. Not the gun kind.
Yeah. Yeah.
I meant like a turret in the castle, but I mean, a turret with a turret in it would be cool.
Do y'all have any questions about Sanguine or anything about my past that might be a roadblock?
What? No.
Okay.
I'm gonna ask about.
What
your
about the
childhood or something.
EMS and the?
I mean, you did
the
arrest
bomb?
me that one time. That's points off.
Huh?
Oh, you're gonna have
Dude,
to
it
remind
was like
me.
almost
Just,
8
like,
years
get over
ago.
Okay. all right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Like-
know.
That was
Yeah.
way before my time.
He asked about his past. That's the past.
Yeah.
Oh God, 8
Well-
years ago. You're exactly the same person you were back
He
then.
asked.
if
He
you-
asked.
If you want, you can give us your life story.
All right. Well, the only reason I brought it up is I had someone pull up on me about an hour ago and threaten me over it. So you never know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wasn't concerned about it, and then you brought it up, so now I feel like it's, it's like if you tell someone like, "Hey, I didn't light your
Oh.
house on fire."
Wait, are you familiar with the Sanguine War?
Yes.
I'm not. Although I haven't spoken much, but I'd like to hear
it
about
goes
the
it goes
War.
pretty deep. But
No?
I've got a documentary about it, Battle of Sanguine Isle.
ooh,
Go check
that
it
is
out.
true.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great
You know the worst thing about that, Ursula, is that you were meant to be cleared. But
Yep. Well, they fucked
Yeah.
up, and now it got told from a different point of view.
yeah.
It's okay. I figure I brought down the entire government of the state because of it, so I'm happy enough with that.
Yeah, you're not wrong about that. It's
Yep.
crazy that well. Oh yes, I do work for President Davis on the weekends. So
You hold any
Oh.
grudges against officers who didn't get involved?
no. You mean like Flop?
Myself.
Oh, no, of course not. As I remember, I didn't actually didn't know you were on that. But I know folks like Flop stuck behind, and it wasn't even staying behind. I mean, the island still needed policing. And also, just like with any, so I'll give you an even better answer. It was not. We never should have sent the police force. That was one of the most idiotic things ever. The original decision was to have a voluntary draft. As any war. Yep.
Sorry, Brian. I am obligated to tell you that the princess wants you to know that she has passed out from listening to you talk.
Oh,
What?
I think that concludes the interview.
Oh my
Interview's
God!
over.
Jesus Christ!
Jesus Christ, you talk so
Princess?
much, you didn't even notice her pass out? God damn, Brian.
Yeah. Well, I thought she was bowing down.
What?
Princess, are you hungry? Are you thirsty? Oh,
I think
Princess?
it's best you leave. I think you
All
just
right.
need to leave now.
All right.
Yeah. Hey, that's
Thank
my
you.
chair.
Yep. All right.
All that sanguine.
Give me
All
my
right.
chair.
There you go.
Princess.
All right.
All right. Y'all stay safe.
Yeah, she is genuinely passed out. So she probably needs some help.
I'll get you a mess.
We'll get her.
Yeah,
She dead?
well,
Not yet. Yeah.
stepped away.
Wait. there might
She's
be-
alive. She's
He's
alive.
getting
You
closer.
know,
He's getting closer.
Okay.
you don't have to. She's
Jesus
breathing.
fucking Christ.
She's breathing, Knight.
Listen, she's a princess. She's got a pee that she's
Yeah.
got to sleep on. Like, we'll get a few mattresses.
All
And,
right.
Yeah. Why don't you two head out?
Okay.
All right.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you very much for your interview, sir.
They
We'll be in
knock her out.
touch.
The hell,
Were you watching?
I was watching, but I was about to fall asleep myself. I'm not gonna lie. It was a lot of talking.
Well, they're asking me questions. Like,
Yeah,
what do you?
no,
what
I'm
do you?
not saying it's on you. I'm just saying I
Yeah.
don't know how I ended up on a panel.
Wait, what do you
What the
mean?
hell I
You
was-
thought?
I don't know. I thought I was just coming up here to see what's up, and you
Yeah.
said a castle. I was looking for a
Yeah.
castle. I didn't know it was a supermarket, so I walked into a supermarket trying to buy groceries.
Wait,
and then
where's
there
my
you
vehicle?
were.
I think it's over here.